The atrocities committed by the Nazi regime during World War II are some of the darkest chapters in human history. The horrors of the Holocaust, the forced labor of millions, and the destruction of entire cities were all carried out under the leadership of some of the most evil men to ever walk the earth. In this video, we will delve into the lives and actions of the worst Nazi criminals in history. From the architect of the final solution, to the sadistic doctors who performed inhumane medical experiments, to the ruthless commanders of the concentration camps, we will explore the stories of these individuals and the terrible legacy they left behind. This video serves as a stark reminder of the depths of human depravity and the importance of never forgetting the lessons of history. Number 10. Amon Goeth was an Austrian SS officer who is perhaps best known for his role as the commandant of the Plaszow concentration camp in Poland during World War II. He was responsible for the murder and mistreatment of thousands of Jewish prisoners, and his cruelty and sadism earned him a reputation as one of the most brutal figures of the Holocaust. Goeth was born in Vienna in 1908 and joined the Austrian branch of the Nazi Party in 1930. He later became a member of the SS, and by the outbreak of World War II, he was serving as an officer in the Waffen-SS, the military branch of the SS. In 1943, Goeth was appointed as the commandant of the newly established Plaszow concentration camp, which was located on the outskirts of Krakow in German-occupied Poland. Plaszow was originally intended to be a labor camp, but under Goeth's leadership, it quickly became a site of mass murder. Goeth was known for his sadistic treatment of prisoners and was especially brutal towards Jewish inmates. He would often order his guards to shoot prisoners for no reason and would also personally carry out executions. He would often use his balcony, which overlooked the camp, as a place from which to shoot prisoners at random. Goeth also imposed a strict regime of forced labor on the prisoners, with many being worked to death or killed for failing to meet production targets. He was known for his love of horses and would often force Jewish prisoners to ride around the camp on carts, sometimes causing them to be dragged to their deaths. Perhaps the most infamous incident associated with Goeth's time at Plaszow is the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto in March 1943. Goeth was responsible for overseeing the deportation of thousands of Jews from the ghetto to Plaszow, where many were killed on arrival. Those who survived were forced to work in the camp's munitions factory and were subjected to brutal treatment by Goeth and his guards. Despite his reputation for brutality, Goeth was also known for his charm and charisma and would often entertain visitors at his villa on the grounds of the camp. He had a mistress, Ruth Irene Calder, who was also employed at Plaszow as a secretary. In 1944, Goeth was relieved of his command at Plaszow and transferred to another position. He was later arrested by the Allies and put on trial for war crimes. Goeth was found guilty and sentenced to death, and was hanged in September 1946. Goeth's story was later immortalized in the book Schindler's Ark, which was later adapted into the film Schindler's List. In the film, Goeth is portrayed by actor Ralph Fiennes as a sadistic and cruel figure who takes pleasure in the suffering of others. Number 9. Ernst Kaltenbrunner was an Austrian SS officer who rose to become one of the most powerful figures in Nazi Germany during World War II. He was the head of the Reich Main Security Office, which oversaw the Gestapo, the SD, Security Service, and other intelligence agencies. Kaltenbrunner was responsible for the persecution and murder of millions of people, and his role in the Holocaust made him one of the most notorious war criminals of the Nazi regime. Kaltenbrunner was born in 1903 in Austria and joined the Nazi Party in 1932. He quickly rose through the ranks of the SS, and by 1943, he had been appointed as the head of the Reich Main Security Office, succeeding his predecessor, Reinhard Heydrich, who had been assassinated by Czech partisans. As head of the RSHA, Kaltenbrunner was responsible for overseeing the activities of the Gestapo, the SD, and other intelligence agencies. He played a key role in the implementation of the final solution, which was the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe. Kaltenbrunner was involved in the planning and execution of many of the worst atrocities of the Holocaust, including the deportation of Jews to concentration and extermination camps, and the murder of millions of other undesirables, such as political dissidents, homosexuals, and Roma people. Kaltenbrunner was also involved in the prosecution of the war on the Eastern Front and was responsible for the execution of thousands of Soviet prisoners of war. He was known for his ruthlessness and his devotion to Nazi ideology, and was considered to be one of Hitler's most loyal followers. As the war began to turn against Germany, Kaltenbrunner became increasingly involved in attempts to prolong the conflict. He was a key player in the failed werewolf resistance movement, which aimed to carry out guerrilla warfare against the Allies in the event of a German defeat. In May 1945, as Germany was on the brink of defeat, Kaltenbrunner was captured by Allied forces. He was put on trial at Nuremberg along with other high-ranking Nazi officials and was charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity. The prosecution presented evidence of his role in the Holocaust and other atrocities committed by the Nazi regime. Despite his attempts to deny responsibility for the crimes committed by the RSHA, Kaltenbrunner was found guilty on all charges and was sentenced to death. He was hanged on October 16, 1946, becoming one of the last high-ranking Nazis to be executed for their crimes. Kaltenbrunner's legacy is that of a ruthless and committed Nazi who was responsible for the murder and persecution of millions of people. His role in the Holocaust and other atrocities committed by the Nazi regime serves as a reminder of the dangers of extremist ideologies and the need to remain vigilant against hate and intolerance. Number 8. Hermann Göring was a prominent figure in Nazi Germany and one of Hitler's closest associates. He was a leading member of the Nazi Party, a World War I flying ace, and the founder of the Gestapo, the secret police of Nazi Germany. Göring played a significant role in the rise of the Nazi Party and the implementation of their policies, including the Holocaust. Göring was born in 1893 in Rosenheim, Germany. He served as a fighter pilot during World War I and was credited with shooting down 22 enemy planes, earning him the nickname the Ace of Aces. After the war, he joined the Nationalist German Workers' Party, which later became the Nazi Party, and quickly rose through the ranks. Göring became one of Hitler's most trusted advisors and was appointed as the commander of the newly formed Gestapo in 1933. He was responsible for suppressing opposition to the Nazi regime, using brutal tactics to crush dissent and maintain control. He was also instrumental in the implementation of the final solution, which was the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe. Göring was appointed as the head of the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, in 1935. He oversaw the expansion and modernization of the Luftwaffe and played a key role in the early successes of the German military in World War II, including the conquest of Poland and the fall of France. Despite his initial military successes, Göring's leadership was criticized for his poor decision-making and ineffective management of the Luftwaffe. As the war progressed, he became increasingly addicted to morphine, which affected his ability to carry out his duties. In 1945, as Germany was on the brink of defeat, Göring attempted to negotiate a peace settlement with the Allies, hoping to secure his own position in a post-war government. Hitler was furious with Göring's actions and ordered his arrest, but Göring managed to escape to Austria before surrendering to the Americans. Göring was put on trial at Nuremberg along with other high-ranking Nazi officials. He was charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity, including his role in the Holocaust and the atrocities committed by the Gestapo. During the trial, Göring presented himself as a reformed man, distancing himself from Hitler and claiming that he had tried to end the war in its final stages. Despite his attempts to portray himself as a moderate, Göring was found guilty on all counts and was sentenced to death. He committed suicide in his cell the night before his execution by swallowing cyanide. Göring's legacy is that of a ruthless and ambitious Nazi who was responsible for the persecution and murder of millions of people. His leadership of the Gestapo and his role in the implementation of the final solution serve as a reminder of the dangers of extremist ideologies and the need to remain vigilant against hate and intolerance. Number 7. Joseph Goebbels was a prominent figure in Nazi Germany and one of Hitler's closest associates. He was a leading member of the Nazi Party and served as the Minister of Propaganda and Public Enlightenment from 1933 until his death in 1945. Goebbels played a key role in shaping the Nazi ideology and was instrumental in the implementation of their policies, including the persecution of Jews and other minority groups. Goebbels was born in 1897 in Reit, Germany. He was a gifted student and went on to study literature and philosophy at the University of Heidelberg. He was deeply influenced by the writings of Friedrich Nietzsche and became a fervent nationalist, believing that Germany had been humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles at the end of World War I. Goebbels joined the Nazi Party in 1924 and quickly rose through the ranks, becoming a close confidant of Hitler. He was appointed as the Minister of Propaganda and Public Enlightenment in 1933 and used his position to shape the Nazi ideology and promote Hitler's vision for Germany. Goebbels was a master of propaganda and used every means at his disposal to control the media and shape public opinion. He oversaw the creation of a vast propaganda machine that included newspapers, radio broadcasts, films, and rallies. He believed that the key to maintaining the Nazi regime was to control the hearts and minds of the German people. Goebbels was a fierce anti-Semite and played a key role in the persecution of Jews and other minority groups. He was instrumental in the organization of Kristallnacht, a night of violent attacks on Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues in November 1938. He also played a key role in the implementation of the final solution, which was the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe. As the war progressed and Germany began to suffer defeats, Goebbels became increasingly fanatical in his devotion to Hitler and the Nazi cause. He was appointed as the Reich Plenipotentiary for Total War in 1943 and oversaw the mobilization of the German economy for war. In the final days of the war, as the Allies closed in on Berlin, Goebbels remained loyal to Hitler and refused to flee the city. He and his wife, Magda, committed suicide together in the Führer bunker on May 1, 1945, shortly before the fall of Berlin. Goebbels' legacy is that of a ruthless and fanatical Nazi who was responsible for shaping the Nazi ideology and promoting their policies of hate and intolerance. His role in the persecution of Jews and other minority groups serves as a reminder of the dangers of extremist ideologies and the need to remain vigilant against hate and intolerance. Number 6. Adolf Eichmann was a prominent member of the Nazi Party and one of the key architects of the Holocaust. He was born in Solingen, Germany in 1906 and joined the Nazi Party in 1932. Eichmann was tasked with the implementation of the final solution, which was the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe. Eichmann was a bureaucrat who worked diligently to ensure the smooth operation of the Nazi machinery of death. He was responsible for organizing the transportation of Jews to concentration and extermination camps, and for coordinating the deportation of Jews from all over Europe to these camps. He was known for his efficiency and attention to detail, and was seen as a trusted and loyal member of the Nazi regime. Eichmann was one of the architects of the Wannsee Conference, which was held in January 1942 and was the meeting at which the final solution was formally adopted. At the conference, Eichmann presented a plan for the deportation of millions of Jews from all over Europe to extermination camps in Poland. He was responsible for ensuring that the necessary infrastructure was in place to carry out this plan, including the construction of gas chambers and crematoria at the death camps. After the war, Eichmann fled to Argentina, where he lived under an assumed name for several years. In 1960, he was captured by Israeli intelligence agents and brought to Israel to stand trial for his crimes. His trial was one of the most high-profile trials of the 20th century and was broadcast around the world. Eichmann was found guilty of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes against the Jewish people. He was sentenced to death by hanging and was executed in 1962. Eichmann's trial and execution brought renewed attention to the Holocaust and helped to keep the memory of its victims alive. Eichmann's legacy is that of a ruthless and efficient bureaucrat who played a key role in the implementation of the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe. His role in the Holocaust serves as a reminder of the dangers of extremism and the need to remain vigilant against hate and intolerance. Number 5. Rudolf Höss was a German SS officer and the first commandant of the infamous Auschwitz concentration camp. Born in Baden-Baden, Germany in 1901, Höss joined the Nazi Party and the SS in 1933. He quickly rose through the ranks of the SS and was appointed commandant of Auschwitz in 1940. Under Höss's command, Auschwitz became the largest and deadliest concentration camp in the Nazi system. It was the site of the mass murder of over 1.1 million Jews, as well as other minority groups such as Romani people, homosexuals, and political dissidents. Höss was known for his strict and brutal rule of the camp, and was responsible for implementing the final solution in the region of Poland. Höss oversaw the construction of the gas chambers and crematoria at Auschwitz, and was directly responsible for the murder of thousands of prisoners. He was known for his meticulous record-keeping, which included detailed accounts of the number of prisoners sent to the gas chambers and the amount of Zyklon be used in the killings. In 1943, Höss was promoted to the rank of SS Obersturmbannführer and transferred to oversee other concentration camps. He was captured by the British in 1946 and handed over to the Polish authorities for trial. At his trial, Höss confessed to his role in the murder of over 1 million people at Auschwitz and was found guilty of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes against the Polish nation. He was sentenced to death and executed on April 16, 1947. Höss's legacy is that of a ruthless and efficient bureaucrat who played a key role in the implementation of the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe. His trial and execution helped to bring attention to the atrocities committed at Auschwitz and the other concentration camps, and helped to ensure that those responsible for these crimes were held accountable for their actions. Number 4. Joseph Mengele was born on March 16, 1911, in the town of Günzburg in Bavaria, Germany. He was the eldest of 3 brothers, and his family was relatively well off. His father was a successful businessman who owned a manufacturing plant, and his mother was a housewife. Growing up, Mengele was a gifted student, and he excelled academically. He went on to study medicine at the University of Munich, where he became increasingly interested in anthropology. In 1935, he received his doctorate in anthropology from the University of Frankfurt. Mengele's interest in anthropology led him to become involved in the Nazi Party and the SS in 1937. He served as a medical officer in the Waffen-SS and was later transferred to Auschwitz in 1943, where he began conducting experiments on prisoners. At Auschwitz, Mengele became infamous for his inhumane experiments, which included injecting dyes into the eyes of prisoners to see if he could change their color, and conducting genetic research on twins. He also conducted experiments on human subjects to test the limits of endurance and survival. These experiments included exposing prisoners to extreme temperatures, depriving them of food and water, and administering various drugs to induce seizures. Mengele's most notorious experiments were conducted on twins, which included injections of infectious diseases to see how their immune systems reacted, and surgical experiments, such as removing limbs without anesthesia. He would often select twins to be sent to the gas chambers and then dissect their bodies for further research. Mengele's approach to his work was cold and calculated, and he earned the nickname, the Angel of Death. He oversaw the selection process at Auschwitz, where he would decide who would live or die in the gas chambers. After the war, Mengele fled to South America, where he lived under various aliases until his death in 1979. Despite numerous efforts to locate and capture him, he managed to evade justice for his crimes. Today, Mengel's legacy is one of infamy and horror. His actions remain a stark reminder of the atrocities committed during the Holocaust and the danger of unchecked power and ideology. His once promising career was tainted by his willingness to harm and dehumanize others in the name of a twisted ideology, leaving behind a legacy that serves as a chilling reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink. Number 3. Reinhard Heydrich was a high-ranking SS officer and one of the main architects of the Holocaust. He was born in Halle, Germany in 1904 and joined the Nazi Party and the SS in the early 1930s. Heydrich rose rapidly through the ranks of the SS and was appointed head of the Reich Main Security Office in 1939. In this role, he was responsible for the Gestapo, the SD, and other security agencies in Nazi Germany. Heydrich was one of the key architects of the final solution, the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe. He played a key role in the Wannsee Conference of January 1942, which was the meeting at which the final solution was formally adopted. Heydrich was tasked with organizing the deportation of Jews from all over Europe to concentration and extermination camps in Poland, and was responsible for coordinating the construction of gas chambers and crematoria at these camps. Heydrich was also responsible for the suppression of resistance movements in Nazi-occupied territories. He oversaw the implementation of brutal policies, including the execution of hostages and the deportation of civilians to concentration camps. In 1942, Heydrich was appointed as the Reichsprotector of Bohemia and Moravia. In this role, he oversaw the brutal suppression of the Czech resistance and was the target of an assassination attempt by Czech resistance fighters in May 1942. The attack left Heydrich seriously wounded, and he died of his injuries a few days later. Heydrich's death was a major blow to the Nazi regime and led to a brutal crackdown on the Czech population. Heydrich was seen as one of the most ruthless and efficient members of the Nazi leadership, and his legacy is that of a key figure in the implementation of the final solution and other Nazi atrocities. Number 2. Heinrich Himmler was a prominent member of the Nazi Party and the chief architect of the Holocaust. He was born in Munich, Germany in 1900 and joined the Nazi Party in 1923. Himmler rose through the ranks of the party and was appointed head of the SS in 1929, a position he held until the end of World War II. Under Himmler's leadership, the SS became one of the most powerful organizations in Nazi Germany. Himmler oversaw the growth of the organization from a small group of bodyguards for Hitler to a powerful force of over 500,000 men. The SS was responsible for the implementation of the final solution, the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe, and other crimes against humanity. Himmler was also responsible for the establishment of concentration and extermination camps throughout Nazi-occupied Europe. He oversaw the construction and operation of these camps, which were responsible for the murder of millions of Jews, as well as Romani people, homosexuals, and other minority groups. Himmler was known for his brutal and ruthless rule of the SS. He was responsible for implementing a range of cruel and inhumane policies, including the use of torture and execution to suppress dissent and maintain order within the organization. In the final months of World War II, Himmler attempted to negotiate a separate peace with the Allies. When his efforts were unsuccessful, he went into hiding, but was eventually captured by British forces. Himmler committed suicide by swallowing a cyanide pill while in Allied custody in May 1945. Himmler's legacy is that of a key figure in the implementation of the Nazi plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe and other crimes against humanity. His leadership of the SS helped to make it one of the most feared and brutal organizations of the Nazi regime, and his influence continues to be felt in the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. Number 1. Adolf Hitler was one of the most evil figures in history, responsible for the deaths of millions of people during the Holocaust and World War II. His reign of terror was characterized by his extreme authoritarianism, his belief in the superiority of the Aryan race, and his hatred of Jews and other minority groups. Hitler's rise to power was marked by violence, propaganda, and intimidation. He used his powerful speeches to rally the German people around his vision of a Nazi-dominated Europe, and his regime was characterized by a brutal and ruthless enforcement of Nazi ideology. Under Hitler's leadership, the Nazi regime committed countless atrocities, including the forced labor of millions of prisoners of war and civilians, medical experiments on concentration camp prisoners, and the destruction of entire cities. However, the most horrific crime committed by Hitler and his regime was the Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews, as well as millions of other minority groups. The Holocaust was a carefully planned and executed campaign of genocide, which saw Jews rounded up and sent to concentration camps, where they were subjected to forced labor, starvation, torture, and medical experiments. Those who were deemed unfit for work were sent to extermination camps, where they were gassed and cremated en masse. Hitler's hatred of Jews was so extreme that he was willing to sacrifice millions of lives in pursuit of his twisted ideology. His legacy is one of terror, genocide, and destruction, and serves as a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity. Hitler's name will forever be associated with the horrors of the Holocaust and the atrocities committed by his regime during World War II. The stories of the worst Nazi criminals in history are difficult to hear, but they are important to remember. By exploring the lives and actions of these individuals, we can gain a greater understanding of the atrocities committed during World War II and the importance of preventing such crimes from ever happening again. As we reflect on the legacy of these individuals, we must also remember the millions of lives that were lost and the countless families who were forever changed by the horrors of the Holocaust. It is our responsibility to ensure that the lessons of history are not forgotten, and that we continue to work towards a world where such atrocities are never again allowed to occur. Thank you for watching, and may we never forget the lessons of history.